Yeah, director of the Smithsonian changed when Dr. Heyman took over. The whole project took on a whole different focus. I was having also a challenge with my partners from Philadelphia because the firm Geddes, Brooker, Quills and Cunningham, the senior partners were bought out by the junior partners, and the whole firm changed, and the people I was working with were no longer in charge. So I had all that technical background, which my new team did not have, which then made my team vulnerable because I was operating according to the technology that was current, and they were operating according to technology that was not current, and this created a conflict with our team. I found that the Smithsonian elaborated on the conflict between us. I never regarded Mr. Polchek as one of my peers. However, he came in and analyzed our work that had actually had approval of 5 architects from the Smithsonian. During this whole process, the payments were stopped, and so we had the problems of the Smithsonian owing us money. And so I had 5 offices at the time, and I was borrowing money from these offices and also converting Canadian money into American money, which was sort of ridiculous given Canadian money at that time was like 60 cents on the dollar. But I had put everything into that project. And then Polchek came in for a peer review of my work, all of my drawings and everything. Instead of saying that I was 65% complete, he said I was 35% complete. He said that I owed the Smithsonian millions of dollars, which was entirely wrong. Indeed, they even got Department of Justice to come in and to present their point of view. We were terminated because my team did not have the technical background to carry out my work. What happened is they involved us in a meeting, and I presented where the vapor barrier should be. The Philadelphia team presented what they felt that the vapor barrier should be. The group from Boston naturally accepted my recommendation. So then the Smithsonian then fired the Philadelphia firm because they said they didn't have the expertise. But in firing the Philadelphia firm, they fired the whole team, including me. So then this then led the way for Polchek to take over the project, which is a total conflict of interest, because then he set the project as only 35% complete, which then made his scope of work larger than if he took over the project at 65% complete. It served 2 purposes. It drove me into tremendous financial hardship, which didn't allow me to continue on the project anyway. And it gave him the opportunity of actually taking over the project with a larger scope of work. The issue is that in a certain situation I found that might was right, that it didn't matter what happened, or what was just or right or correct or whatever. They did what they did, and then I had no resources to fight back, because if I went to a lawyer, it would be, Douglas Cardinal vs. United States of America, because the board of the Smithsonian, the head of the Smithsonian was Chief Justice Rehnquist, and the vice president, plus 4 top congressmen. So you ended up with the establishment of the United States on the board. But what had happened with the project, everybody loved the design, and it was entirely, the design was approved, so that that was already stuck in people's mind. Oh, they paid him $7 million to copy my work. And meanwhile, I'm back here, and I was financed by Ann Roberts to finish all my work, finish the models, drawings, computer drawings, everything. I got a call from Carter Brown a year later, struggling along to survive. Doug, he says, I got a submission by Palchik and his team and Dr. Heyman, and their submission is a cartoon of your work. It's not your real work. They've made changes to your design that I feel totally unacceptable, and that it doesn't belong in our mall, it belongs in a shopping mall. And I'll send you all the drawings and everything, but when they present their version of your work, I want to present your real work, because I know the Rockefellers had financed you to finish your work, and would you please do that? I said, well, it has not been a good experience for me being in Washington, and he said, but with a lot of convincing, he asked me to come to Washington. So I go to the Fine Arts Commission, and to the building there with all the Greek columns and all that. And I'm in the audience, and there's Palchik and his people presenting their version of my design. Carter Brown says, very, very well, but the last presenter of the design is in the audience. Doug, would you please come forward? Well, what we had done is, since we saw their presentation, we made our presentation drawings twice as big, much more dramatic, showing the model and everything that we have done. I made my presentation to Carter Brown and the Fine Arts Commission. And Carter Brown said, that's what we want. That's the building of the ages. That's what we want on our mall. Not this. Presenting, said the Palchik, that's right. This is what we want on our mall. And Palchik got up to defend himself by sort of referring to me as someone that is incapable to do this work. After all, these are just sketches or drawings. Only I can carry out this work. Sort of intimating that as a Native American, I don't have the, wherewithal to do the technology of the one in Mall. And the Washington project is a quarter the size of the Museum of Civilization. Carter Brown was so angry at his comments that he said to him, "Mr. Palchik, sit down, your work is ugly." And this is reported in the Washington Post. And so they totally rejected all the work that Polchek and his team had done for a year, which the Smithsonian spent $7 million on copying my work. And so Dr. Heyman announced that everything that was presented to the Fine Arts Commission was a public document. So he seized all of my work, all my drawings, models and everything, gave it to Palchik to produce absolutely. Even the letter set that we took from the bottom drawer that all we could afford. They presented the design, my design, to Fine Arts Commission. And the Fine Arts Commission had no alternative to approve it because it was my work. There are people that want me to come back and change the interiors and bring the soul back into the museum because a lot was lost by that team. The building should have cost $100 million, but they ended up costing the Smithsonian $300 million for a degraded building of mine because they didn't know what they were doing. They had never done a curvilinear building before like this on the computer. They didn't have the technology to do it. Rick West asked me to come at the opening, but I decided not to go because why should I? I mean, they had tried their best to ruin my reputation and my credibility and put me in a position where I couldn't fight back in order to bring Dr. Heyman's agenda. So this reporter from the Washington Post ended up at the opening telling the story, true story of the project, and that I was the designer of the project and just what happened on the project. Now they're trying to rechange history right now and give Polchek the credit for the project now, but they all don't want to look bad for what they did. But, I mean, the funny part of it is that when, they took all the scaffolding off the building then they all pulled back and looked at the building, everybody said, "That's Cardinal's work." And the evidence is in their face forever. With all the games they played and all the politics and all the nonsense. But it's taken a while to recover from that experience because they did their best to discredit me there. There are some people like the Rockefellers, there's like Edith Crutcher, Lloyd Keevan-Yu, who did everything possible to try to have it done right. Imagine Carter Brown only allowing this is a real precedent in Washington. He said, you don't understand the precedent I'm setting. I'm only allowing the work of a fired architect to be on the last site on the mall in Washington. There's always these amazing people that come to the fore and come forward and want to see things done right. And I'd rather align myself with them, you know, those kind of people. Resolving these issues, like with these two museum projects that have been so costly to me and my family, is this whole thing of feeling more that there's another way of approaching things rather than anger, and that is probably caring and love and sharing, all those good things.